A few years ago, back in the UK, when I was a member of a gym club, I did something that I can only describe as being brilliantly stupid. Let me explain. The last 20 years or so, I was a member of a gym club, the kind that's got the nice facilities and the little touches of comfort and luxury. So whether you had a good day or a bad day makes a great place to go at the end of it. It's almost like a sanctuary, if you will. I could have a great workout using the machines for half an hour, jump on an exercise bike for another half an hour, move through to the spa area for a quick steam to warm the muscles, followed by a nice swim for another half an hour. Then go back and forth between the steam, the sauna, the jacuzzi, while enjoying a bit of social with the guys. I don't think there was ever occasion when I drove home after it and I didn't feel much better, both mentally and physically, and this usually always resulted in a better night's sleep. Whatever the membership fees were per month, it was well worth it for me because I had the same routine where I did this 7 days a week, month after year, except for vacations and on rare occasions if I wasn't feeling well. And the main part of all of this for me was the swimming. That's the bit that I enjoy the most. Half an hour flat out, full body exertion using all the muscle groups in an 18 to 20 meter pool covering just shy of around a mile in 35 minutes or so. Nothing beats that in my view. Now I use a knee flow which tucks between the knees to give your legs buoyancy while just using your top half to swim. A result of going too hard for too long on exercise bikes giving me knee issues. So before I get into the pool, I'd have to get one of these floats. Now, over the years, there have been numerous lifeguards that are around for a few months to gain their qualifications and then leave. Some of them are guys, some of them are girls, some of them are pretty, and some of them not. And they would sit at the top of their pool deck lifeguard chair, observing for any drowning people. Now, in reality, they've probably never seen it happen ever. Although it does happen on rare occasions, the chances of somebody drowning in a swimming pool 1.5 meter in depth are slim to none. So they just sit there hour after hour, occasionally coming down those steps of the ladder to test chlorine levels and various other things in the pool. Going back about 8 or 9 years ago, at that particular time, there was one lifeguard that caught my attention. Of course, she was pretty, long blonde hair, but there was something special about this girl. I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was specifically, but it was there, perhaps her overall demeanor. The kind of girl that you had to reach right out of your comfort zone and then some. So I casually stroll into the pool area, having a quick steam, then go and get one of the knee floats that were kept on a ledge underneath where the lifeguards sat on their little perch. This particular girl, knowing that I was going to get one of these things, always used to hand me one as I approached. I would always thank her and be polite and then get on with my swim, and that was that. I can't quite remember at exactly or what point the idea came into my head to tell this girl exactly what I thought of her, which was that she was beautiful. For some reason, my brain told me that this might be a good idea. I wasn't going to ask her for a date or go out on a coffee or anything in particular, but just to tell her straight up that that's what I thought of her. Now, believe it or not, it was actually quite innocent. Anyway, I sat with this idea for a while, but once my focus locks onto a challenge, it stays there until it's done. There's just no getting away from it one way or another. It's going to happen. There's an element of my character that sits comfortably with the risk, probably due to the fact that for the last 18 to 20 years or so, I've been trading various different markets that move up and down, which is essentially the arena of risk. However, on this particular occasion, I was focused on only one thing, and that was the reward. Yep, here there was no downside. It was all upside all the way. At least that's the way that my mind saw it anyway. So at a given time, unknown to me, I was going to approach this girl and I was going to tell her what I thought of her. Now, I can remember the main motivating reason behind this was that I wanted to be the guy that had the balls to do this, so that in years to come, when I'm sat there in a nursing home with piss dribbling down my legs while staring out of that window on a sunny day, if I'm lucky enough to be able to remember it, that memory will be the one that said, I was the man that did, and not the man that didn't. Pure and simple. So with that in mind, on Friday afternoon, I always used to finish work a bit early and head off straight down the gym. And on this particular Friday, as I was just finishing my half hour on one of the bikes, I decided that this was the time. So I head off to the changing rooms, leapt into my swimming shorts, grabbed my towel and goggles, and marched off into the swimming pool area. Sure enough, as I walked through the entrance, there she was, sat on her perch looking as beautiful as ever. It was around 3 p.m, broad daylight, and there were a dozen people milling around, 2 or 3 in the pool, a couple in the steam room, and 1 or 2 guys in the jacuzzi. I quickly calculated the risk-reward, and without any hesitation, I stopped at the foot of the ladder and I looked up at her and asked, "Can I ask you a question?" I wanted her closer so I didn't have to shout. Immediately, she made her way down the steps and just stood there looking straight at me. I gazed right into her blue eyes and said, "There was a clock on that side wall of the swimming pool that I used to time myself and my 30-minute swim. Where's it gone?" To which she replied very simply, "It got dropped." Okay, all right, it got dropped. I was really tempted to ask her how it got dropped, considering that it was about 10 foot off the floor and nailed to the wall, but what the hell did it matter anyway? So I thanked her, then just as I was turning to walk away, I decided, okay, let's get this over and done with. For some stupid reason, I decided to snap my fingers while saying the words, I like you a lot. Now let's be honest, that in itself gives the going away, basically says everything. You've got to remember here that I hadn't planned this, so I didn't really know exactly what I was going to say in that moment. But I continued, I see you around here quite a lot. I then looked straight into her eyes and I said, you're beautiful. My God, at that precise moment, I felt like I was 14, I'll be honest. I hadn't stopped for a single second to care about what her response might be to me, if any, but it didn't really matter much to me. It was the telling to her that mattered. Anyway, she responded with the most beautiful smile that I've ever seen and said, oh, thank you, she said. No slap, no look of disgust. Okay, I'm on a roll here. I thought, let's keep this baby moving while I can. Besides, there were people edging closer by. So I continued, look, I don't know your age or your circumstance. No sooner had I got halfway through the word circumstances when she interrupted and while gently bouncing on the balls of her feet, said the words that I'll never forget. I'm 18. There have been no more than 2 occasions in my life when I felt this kind of unease of terror. The first was quite a few years ago when I turned on the midday news and immediately saw live footage of the Twin Towers tragedy, which literally stopped me in my tracks. And the second was this. As I stood before her shrinking to a height no bigger than one of the borrowers, I froze as I desperately tried to find meaning in her words, I'm 18. Had I misheard? So I went through all the possibilities in my mind, 8, 80, no, 28, no. It had to be 18 then. The realization of what I'd done and the potential ramifications of this was accompanied by being able to feel the pulse in the heels of my feet, and I'm sure my head was slightly shaking as well. All of this was in slow motion as I was staring straight into her eyes, but it was the word teen that terrified me. You see, if you make those kind of mistakes over here, it's really no big deal, whereas in the West, you see flashing blue lights in your mind and you're hearing police sirens. Over here, you can approach any girl of legal age, and even if they're not the slightest bit interested in you, they will mostly be polite, even flattered sometimes, and perhaps even engage in conversation with you. But in the West, you just don't do it, not even by mistake. At the very last moment, my rationale kicked in, if for nothing else, other than for damage limitation, and I just said the following. I'm really sorry. I've misjudged this by about 10 years. Look, I really like coming down here, so I'd appreciate it if you could keep this to yourself. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what her response was. Either way, it didn't matter. I knew without a doubt that in a couple of days, she would tell half the damn building, and that's the end of it. So I slithered away into the jacuzzi to nurse my self-inflicted wounds for a few minutes and then made good my escape past her while mouthing the words, sorry. To which she replied, "It's fine," in a totally cool, calm demeanor. I must have had a 40-minute shower while I contemplated the fallout of this situation. I got dressed, did the walk of shame across the car park in full view of the pool windows, and went home to see an old buddy of mine who I seek advice from on occasions like these, a Mr. Jack Daniels. I consulted with him all weekend, but to no avail. My rationale was split between having done what I set out to achieve in broad daylight, not in a bar on a weekend after a few drinks when your inhibitions are absent, but something that many guys just wouldn't have had the nuts to do, and the potential mess that could follow on from this as everyone slowly learned of my antics. However, as it turned out, the next time I saw this girl a week or two later, she acted like a real pro, grinned at me, handed me a float like it's no big deal. She knows that guys can be idiots and she probably gets it all the time. She did, however, tell all the female population at this gym club, mainly staff. I knew this as over the following weeks I got smiles and grins from women that said, "We know what you did, but we think it's cute, so don't worry, we won't tell everyone." Now, let me be absolutely clear. In all honesty, I'd made the assumption that this girl was in her mid-late 20s, and why my brain overlooked the fact that lifeguarding is mainly part-time work for youngsters, God only knows. The unfortunate thing here is that after the fact, there was never really a good opportunity to explain to this person that my intention was never to ask them out. It was just to tell them. In fact, going back to the words that I said, I was actually going to complete the sentence. I don't know your age and your circumstances, and I don't want to know, because I just wanted to tell you this. And that literally would have been it. Yes, there can be some embarrassment. Yes, she could have told everyone on the planet. Yes, the fallout could have been much worse. But the underlying goal here was that at some point in the future, I'm able to turn around and say with a little grin on my face, I was the man that did, and not the one that didn't. How many times do we see somebody that gives us a heart flutter or takes our breath away momentarily? That someone that almost feels like they have a look about them where we can see the person inside that resonates with us in a very special way. And 99 times out of 100, we do nothing about it. We don't want to take the risk because we're afraid of rejection or being made fun of, or basically the downside, the negative side, the risk element. In my mind, there was a fork in the road and I had a choice. I can either keep it to myself, do nothing and be the man that didn't, or I could man up, embrace the risk and say something nice to somebody that hopefully would be received in that way that it was intended. There are two things to take away from this experience. The first is that even as I say these words, I have the satisfaction of knowing that this is actually something that I did, a real memory, rather than the sinking feeling or belly full of regret because I didn't. Whilst at the same time, the second is that this particular experience has given me brain nervous system conditioning by having a new set of empowering references that have given me the ability to do the same again to any other girl at any point in the future that I might appreciate in the same way. I'm quite happy now to take the risk of knowing that it's not really the end of the world. In fact, I could end up surprising myself by getting a favorable response when I least expect it. And it's in those moments when you take a big deep breath and a leap of faith, follow through and just fork and do it, that the most amazing experiences, relationships, connections with people can come about. Just one of those could be the one that brings you all the happiness that you've ever dreamed of.